So in this video I'm going to talk about a subject which I probably have mentioned in previous videos, but I'm going to go over it in more detail because it is very important to understand the metaphysical manipulations that have been going on for thousands of years, and how we need to deprogram ourselves from this certain paradigm and metaphysical way of thinking. So today I'm going to discuss monotheistic dualism. Now, you may think that monotheism has its origins in the Abrahamic religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. However, it goes back a lot further than that. It started in Egypt, where through infiltration into Egypt by a select few of sorcerers who infiltrated the pharaonic courts and dismantled the original polytheistic, animistic elements of Egypt in order to insert their monotheistic dualism, which was atonism. Now, before atonism was brought out into the exoteric limelight to the public within ancient Egypt, it first started to manifest itself when the brotherhoods of the Egyptian priesthoods, which were all working together there at one time, was split down the middle into the right wing and left wing brotherhoods, and this split caused the dualism. And then they inserted the monotheism, which was atonism, once the dualism was set in. And this then created the first form of monotheistic dualism, which basically proposes that there is only one main god. I mean, in monotheistic dualist religions, there can be other gods, but there is only one main god above all the other gods, and then just underneath all the other gods are his servants. You understand my meaning? And then on the other side, there is an adversary to this particular main god, which is the dark god, so to speak. And then he or she has a number of minions, of other gods underneath him or her. So then there becomes a split, and by people embracing this mentality, this makes people think that all the other forms of this makes other people think that then other forms of, you could say, religion, if you want to call it that, are the enemy god or the adversary god in disguise or something. So then that makes you go and, want to think that they're evil, and then you go and attack them, thinking that you're fighting evil. And then this creates also a backlash from them, and then it gets them, and then it's basically just two sides devouring themselves. Do you understand this now? More going into the history of the origins of this particular theology, as I would call it. It then travels itself into the East after the cult of Aten was banished from Egypt, and where Egypt returned to its original animistic, polytheistic orthodoxy. The Atenists went all the way to the East, And the same thing happened in Iran and India, where they manipulated the teachings of Zarathustra, who was a Iranian sage, and manipulated his teachings and then inserted the original and then mixed it with the original animistic, polytheistic Iranian tradition and created a religion out of it called Zoroastrianism. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything inherently, wrong with the knowledge, the sacred knowledge and wisdom that is preserved in Zoroastrianism, along with its pantheon of deities. I'm saying how it was manipulated and monotheized and dualized from its original animistic polytheistic being. Do you see now? When I'm criticizing these various religions, I'm not criticizing them how they were in their pure form. I'm saying that there was a manipulation from an animistic polytheistic original setting and into a monotheistic dualistic setting. Anyway, when this happened, the Iranians of Zoroastrianism started seeing the Vedic peoples, gods, as the enemy gods. And this is why in the Zoroastrianism, the dark gods are called the Devas, or Devas, which was actually a name for gods in the Vedic tradition. And when this happened, there was wars between Iran and India. And this is at the time where the Vedic tradition turned into the religion of Hinduism, which is a monotheistic, dualistic version of the original Vedic tradition. So do you see this now? What I'm trying to tell you. And then we can take it further to the west, back to the Middle East, around the Mediterranean region, around particularly the Levant, where Judaism. Now, what people need to understand is that Judaism, like with Hinduism and Zoroastrianism, is a monotheistic and dualistic version of the original Levantine Hebrew polytheism and animism, or basically Semitic polytheism and animism, but particularly the Semitic peoples living in the Levantine Hebrew region at that time. And Judaism is a monotheistic, dualistic version of their original polytheism and animism. Now, out of Judaism, there came this sect called the Essenian Gnostics. And this is where the Christ philosophy largely comes from, along with the wisdom of Sophia. And this particular sect was trying to actually bring the Semitic peoples in the Levant at that time away from this monotheistic dualistic infection back to a more animistic one. However, the Zaddikim corrupted this whole teaching and added an apocalyptic dogma and radicalism to this teaching was trying to heal at that time. And if you read these two books I've got down here, one is the Darkening Age, The Christian Destruction of the Classical World by Catherine Nixie. Can't really see it from here, but anyway, that's a really informative book on how radical the early Zaddikim sect of Judaism, which became the religion of Christianity, and how radical and completely righteous these early Christians were. And we also got Not in His Image by John Lamb Lash, and he explains the Essenian Gnostic teachings, along with gets into details about the Zaddikim as well, and how they completely were absolutely hell-bent on destroying all the sacred knowledge that there was. So, now this monotheistic dualism also seeped its way into the classical world as well. And in the late classical world, the late world of the ancient Greeks and ancient Romans, their own polytheistic animistic ways were being monotheistically dualized. And this created an easy way for Christianity or the Zaddikim doctrine, which is a corruption of the Essenian Gnostic teachings, into Rome, into the Roman Church, or the Roman Temple, which became the Roman Church. And this created Christianity, but at that time Catholicism, which then absorbed a lot of the European pagan animism and polytheism and made it into a monotheistic dualistic religion. Now, when Christianity came up to the north of Europe, especially into the Viking Age. In the Viking Age, what happened was the original Norse-Germanic animistic and polytheism became also monotheistic and dualized. And not by even so much by coming into contact, yes, with the Christian religion, that did fuel that their own, you could say, polytheistic and animistic ways became monotheistic and dualized, by heavily focusing on just the Aesir gods and making the other gods, the other gods who weren't Aesir or wouldn't ally themselves with the Aesir, as evil or the dark gods, which then created this monotheistic dualism within Norse paganism, well, I'll just call it Norse Germanic paganism for now. And the problem I have with some of these Norse Germanic pagan reconstructionists today is that some of them try to revive it to a very Viking Age mentality, which is ultimately a monotheistic dualistic version of that. And then you can also see this in, obviously, the religion of Islam, which is a monotheistic dualistic religion, and which really is like I said, a monotheistic dualistic version of Arabian polytheistic animism. And even the actual god Allah was originally a name for a Arabic pagan god. And even the jinn, for example, were also predate Islam and are a pre-Islamic polytheistic animistic Arabian concept. So you can see how all these, that it's not that, you can see how basically all these various major world religions we have today, and I mean every single major organized religion we have today, is a monotheistic, dualistic corruption of a polytheistic animist worldview that once existed within that region of the world. This is something that needs to be taken into account, because we need to get back to this primordial animism, which is the natural way of perceiving the world, the natural worldview, the natural metaphysical worldview. The monotheistic dualism is a centralization and a way to control the human spirit within this reality. And this is largely what my work is all about, trying to get people back into connected to their roots. But the roots will go very deep. Not the roots will get to a level and they just stop there. The roots will actually go right back deep, deep, deep down, for people to remember what was there before all this happened. Because the problems we have in the world today are merely a symptom of a cause that goes back thousands of years. And if we do not recognize the cause, then how the fuck are we ever going to heal ourselves within? So this is the first step, and it's deconstructing out the monotheistic dualistic mindset. And as we're moving now into the age of Aquarius from the age of Pisces, the age of Pisces has largely everything to do with dualism. As you can see, the sign is the two fish, the dualism, but the fish are in the water, the dualism in the unconscious, or the subconscious. Now that dualism needs to be deconstructed and needs to be recognized for what it is. It is not our natural state. Now, how to get back to an animist state of being? Well, first of all, like I said, get back in touch with your roots. Know where your origins go back to. The origins within your blood. The origins within your melanin. Have a connection with nature. Learn about the ways of your ancestors. What their ancient traditions were. What their ancient ways of being were. And then by that you will continue from there and go further and further back into helping you remember what it was like before all this shit happened. And remember, even in the dualistic monotheistic religions of today, I'm not saying there isn't any sacred or valuable knowledge and wisdom and archetypes that are in there. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that is the monotheistic dualization of these ancient sacred teachings, wisdom, knowledge, and archetypes. That is the problem. And then it's up to you, if you have a ancestral connection with any of these certain religious traditions, to do the work on them, to do the work of deconstructing them back to their original animistic, polytheistic forms. Because this is now, it's now infected the entire globe for the last 200 years. So everyone of every race and culture and geographical region is in the same boat in this. Maybe the exception of the very few that lands haven't been infected by this, but there's only probably very few, and that there'll be people who are like in very traditional tribal societies which are hardly in existence now. But apart from that, most of the world's population is under this monotheistic dualistic mindset, even if they don't know it. I was under this monotheistic dualistic mindset, and it took me years to slowly deconstruct myself and slowly heal myself from it. So, this is something I'm going to present in my, well, I'm going to present the origins of this monotheistic dualism in my Age of Aries film that's coming up on my channel soon. Well, probably around the very late part of this year, because I'm still working on it. But it will explain the origins, and I also explained it briefly in this video here of what is how it originated and how it spread across the globe. But to heal from this monotheistic dualism, you need to do it within yourself first. And this has to go into your own psychology and dealing with your shadow aspects of yourself, integrating them into yourself and your soul, so that then you can correlate the dualistic aspects of yourself and see them in a more multiple, polytheistic and animistic vision of your own psyche, basically. So, that's all I've got to say for now. Speak to you next time.